Hi, I'm Andrea Donlevy from Pentester Academy TV, and I spoke with Kevin Riggs and Ron Parker about their sold-out event, BSides Chattanooga. All right, so to start off, so how did you guys come together to start finding BSides Chattanooga? How did you guys meet professionally? How did you guys get to Chattanooga? What's the story there?
Yeah, actually, I'm from Chattanooga, born and raised, kind of hung around here. It really comes down to Kevin and I've really, and he can talk more, but I mean, we've worked together for a decade or two or more, and used to do some development together. Then eventually moved into security and information security. So we've kind of been in that space a while.
Wow, that is scary. We've known each other a long time working on this stuff, haven't we? Yeah, so we've been at the same corporation for going on 20 years. I think you were over 20 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just under 20 years, but I mean, so right at 2 decades together. And BSides was something that as we got into information security, really, it's a great. You ask about the value of BSides and why we like this event in one of the questions you sent us. It's a very local set of individuals who are presenting, but it's global in terms of the technology, the access principles, the everything that we use or will hear about is at a global scale, but it's always applied by people that you know or that you're likely to meet when you get around a local event. And so it was really a good place for Ron and I, as we shared what we were seeing in a corporate environment and enterprise level security. We were able to make some contacts and found value in going and both presenting some of the stuff we were doing and also hearing from other people.
And that was a big plus too, because we were able over the previous 4 or 5 years to actually go and present at several of the local. And when I say local BSides, I'm actually talking about Chattanooga is really fortunate because we're kind of in the middle of Knoxville, Nashville, Asheville, Atlanta. We're right in the center of all that. So we're just an hour or two away from a lot of other local events, and we had the opportunity to go present there and actually just saw the way the community interacted, saw the way the networking, kind of went on, and it was just good for the people who came because a lot of them were local, and it did not take. Some of the conferences, even though they're great, are very expensive, and you have to, it's okay. It's okay if you want to travel and spend $5,000. That's great, but sometimes you just, you don't have it. You don't have the time or the resources to do that. So we saw it as a big opportunity.
Well, and some of the value there too, when you're looking at some of those larger conferences, it may be most applicable when somebody presents at one of those conferences at a very large scale institution. So a large enterprise, a large organization who can afford certain tools and has a really deep bench of talent. But when you get down to that more local level and you start sharing some of the stuff that Ron and I were seeing in our day-to-day work, we were finding that other people were having some of the very same problems with the scale of tools. So, there's some tools that work at a certain scale, but they really may not be tuned to work at a larger scale. And there's some stuff that you find that it's supposedly designed on a very large scale, and it may not work the way you'd expected it to. Right. So we were finding a lot of places where we connected with people. So there was a lot of value in different ways, both for each of us professionally, for us as a team, right, and for the enterprise as we brought it all back to our local enterprise and started trying to implement some of that.
And probably the last thing that I could really throw in there that probably mattered was we spent a lot of time where we work, actually trying to raise security awareness, security assurance. We spend a lot of time trying to educate other people just in our environment through things like lunch and learns or just anything that we could do to help someone understand more about security. And we've been doing that for several years. And to me, BSides is just it's another extension of that where we can go out and take that to the community. And I think that's another huge plus.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I've never been to Chattanooga, but from my research,
Oh,
I
sorry.
know, right? I've only been to Memphis, but doing when I was doing my research about the city, it definitely feels like the attitude there is they want to be sustainable, they want to be local, and kind of like make sure they support sustainable businesses that help everything that is nearby. And I mean, Chattanooga seems so interesting. You have like the Tennessee River running through, you have all these outdoor activities, and then, you have like the gig and the smart grid and all of this technological innovation. So how do you think that Chattanooga is kind of positioning itself to be, sorry. So how do you think like the grid and like this kind of attitudes have really like been setting up Chattanooga to kind of be in the right set for an event like this?
The one thing that we've seen, I mean, and it's been not just, a lot of people have seen, the EPB, our electric power board, brought in, gigabit, communications, and now they have 10 gigabit communications, and it's not, it's not just they brought it in, they made it available to everyone, and they made it available at a very just ridiculously low price, and it with that is the backbone for bringing in, when you start thinking about communications or IT, innovation, when you start thinking about Internet of Things and all the bandwidth and the connectivity and how everything needs to be connected at a decent rate. They tried to enable that, but not just enable it here in Chattanooga. They tried to actually get the innovative thinking, and that's really what they were trying to bring is how do we do the Chattanooga Tech, how does the Chattanooga Technology Council and the other groups that are here in town, how do they get people to start thinking that the gig city is not going to be unique forever. It's going to be the way it is everywhere. And how does Chattanooga help people innovate and move in that direction? So they've had grants, they've brought in people, they've set up areas and buildings and committees, just to really try to draw those people in. And at the same time, they've done that at the arts level, at the social level, to bring in artists, locally, to say, hey, the town is growing because it's not just, technology, it's social aspects too. So there's multiple levels of that. And I know, Kevin, you probably have something to add. I'm just, I think it's neat. It is, you can look at some of the other cities that are growing, but we've spent a long time in getting to this point. It's a lot more than just technology.
It is. I think one of the things that, Andrea, that really sticks out to me, we look at Google taking fiber into other cities, and typically it was a large city because they needed a financial offset to make it valuable for them, right? So we see a big company doing a piece of technology that's going to eventually benefit them. But here in Chattanooga, one of the things that EPB and Ron and I both mentioned, this utility, their power utility. We're down here in the Southeast where TVA generates power, sells power, and we have this separate utility in the city of Chattanooga who was looking at capabilities for themselves. They needed digital control at each endpoint. So at the house, they wanted to have digital access, which meant they needed fat pipes. They needed fiber out to the sidewalk, right? So as you drive through communities, there's fiber to the sidewalk in communities all over Chattanooga. But rather than just putting that in and finding some kind of offset, they went about it in a very creative way. And that's what Ron was alluding to. That was a piece he was really driving at. Whether it was for the arts or whether it was for business, they found a way to take something that was a financial gain for them and instead make it valuable for people because they were willing to do a financial offset and bring it in. So I pay less to have a gigabit coming into my house than a lot of people pay to have half that. And it's the same speed up and down. I mean, we're talking about some high speed connectivity here, and you can pay, as Ron mentioned, for even more. But they went about in a very creative and organic way to try and find a different solution not just to the problem that they had, but to bring value to their marketplace. And people have eaten it up here. So their competitors, there are other people who bring the internet and deliver it into the household or into the business. But honestly, EPB has made just a huge jump over a lot of people who deliver here by not only branding this, that's a creative way to brand it, but by really delivering a different set of value to our entire community. And it has set us up so that even now, if you go with a different provider, there's this attitude of high-speed connectivity. And I can tell you, I know Ron and I work in a company that's got offices in other states, and we sometimes have to travel. I promise you, when you're at home and you're connected here with a gigabit to your house, and then you go somewhere and you realize that their office doesn't have as high speed a connection as you have at home to the desktop. It's a little frustrating. And, your Wi-Fi when you're at home and your phone is connected so much faster. You'd be surprised how you get used to that and you begin to expect it. And then you move outside of your community and it really kind of dries up. It can be frustrating. And you realize how blessed we are to have this access to the knowledge that's out there and the computing power that's out in the cloud so high speed.
Ooh, shoot, man, I wish I had 1 gig at home.
It's nice.
It's nice.
And if you want to pay, you can get more. But
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, when I win the lottery,
I get it.
I'll work on getting my own fiber optic network.
That's it. Yeah, we used to look at these bonded T1s and think, oh my goodness, someday. And now you got fiber sitting. I mean, literally, I can throw a rock to where the fiber line terminates.
I'm not too sure that's going to be a concern of mine when I win the lottery. I'm just thinking,
You're just wanting to get more switches. That's what you're wanting.
Oh, yeah.
I know you. Yeah.
All right. Cool. So, you guys kind of set it up. So, yeah, Chattanooga is like super prime for an event like what you're organizing. So why do you think it's like important to have this kind of come up? I know we kind of touched on it a little bit ago.
One thing, just when you look at what's in Chattanooga now, when you have the not just the innovative stuff that's coming in and all the startups. I mean, that's the other thing I don't emphasize enough was there are a lot of startups being brought into Chattanooga, and there's money and grants and everything being, put out there to build that foundation. And when you do that, a lot of those, and as a matter of fact, I would almost say a majority of those are going to be technology based, because that's just, when you look at whether you want to just throw out those words like Internet of Things or digital transformation or, whatever you want to throw out there, there's just so much technology that's changing. Information security becomes, it's not just a problem that's put off in some large company or something else. All of a sudden, information security is everywhere, and it matters to every business, not just, credit card companies, but we have several large insurance companies here in Chattanooga. We have manufacturing companies that have, manufacturing secrets and customers and everything. So when you start looking at the reasons and the places that information security needs to be, as you become an innovation incubator, you've got to keep up. You have to keep up with those needs in security. But I know, Kevin, I may have cut you off there.
No, man. That's a large part of it. The principles are the same. So when you look at Chattanooga and you wonder, why is this a good place, and why are we seeing growth, and how does that gig technology, that high-speed connectivity to the cloud, that interconnectedness, how does that help us, and why does it benefit from a BSides? Honestly, the knowledge around BSides and what's shared from one presenter to her audience or his audience, it doesn't matter what city you're in. Those things are important. But as Ron mentioned, and we've touched on it, the digital fabric, as we begin to build out this world in which every individual no longer is able to depend on somebody else to implement security. I get to decide because it's on my mobile device. and my mobile device now affords me the ability to set a security setting. And everybody who works for me then is beholden to how secure I make myself. Having events like BSides, whether it's in Chattanooga or somewhere else, is important for us to get the knowledge out there about how do we secure things, how do we think about the security of the devices, of the cloud infrastructure, of the capability, the processing that's in any place, Azure, AWS, Google, whatever you're using. We're kind of immature in this space as an industry, not just around security, but in terms of using these capabilities and learning to think of them in ways that people take advantage of and compromise is important that we share. Now, it's great doing it in Chattanooga because, as Ron said, we've got a lot of startups that are coming in here taking advantage of, we're in the South. Our costs are lower. It costs less to have a business down here, even though every business is expensive, but it costs a little bit less down here. Our expenses are just less. You get more for your dollar down here. So this is a great place to be. And we have high-speed fiber. We have high-speed internet connection, and you can get out to your cloud a whole lot faster. But being able to have these conferences here in Chattanooga and other places where we share what people are seeing, the compromises that are out there, and how you think about securing those. What does your defense in-depth approach look like? What do the principles around security look like when we start moving into that cloud space? This is a good time for us to have those conversations. We're glad to be having it here in Chattanooga. And as Ron said, we're really centrally focused between a lot of big cities. We got a lot of deep thinkers in Huntsville that work on the space program. We got huge businesses down in Atlanta. I know we've got some really smart security people who are working both in Nashville and up in Knoxville in small or growing security businesses. This is a great time for us to be able to start this here in Chattanooga because we have so many resources across a vast array of security domains who can come in and speak. And honestly, right now, I think Ron and I probably would both, we've discussed how we want this to grow because there are so many different domains we can take advantage of and leverage. And we have great resources to speak to what it is that we need to get out there as a message. I think we're really, really well positioned to be able to pull in a lot of people, not only who want to start in this industry, but people who've been in it and have seen for many years. So I think BSides in general is great, and especially here in Chattanooga, we're just really well positioned right now.
I think too that, what we didn't mention that's probably pretty important. We're also just about the snack capital of the South.
It's true.
It is true. Little Debbie's, are from here, and moon pies. So I'm not too sure, what more you need, to be a snack capital.
And one of the home office for the place we work up north, also they have, what are those whoopie pies? Is that?
They have, but whoopie pies are not the same as a moon pie.
It's not the same as a moon pie or a Little Debbie, but we do have something to draw people down here. There's no doubt.
Yeah, that's right.
Moon pies. I have not thought about moon pies in a long time.
Oh, you can go just about anywhere and find a box of them for about $3.99 around here.
Well,
marshmallows and cookies.
I'm in California. We're all health nuts out here.
Yeah, see, we are too.
Yeah, we are too. Yeah.
Yeah, our moon pie would be made of like avocado and some almonds.
Oh, that's not right. That's a crime against humanity.
It is.
I love avocado.
I do too, but just not on my moon pie.
That's true. Yes, that's what I say. They don't have that flavor yet. I don't think we can't speak for them. Maybe they're developing it.
Well, they have vegan recipes for like chocolate avocado cookies. It makes it really creamy.
My wife would love that.
Yeah. Check it out.
I'm gonna have to now. Maybe she won't see this. Maybe she won't see this.
That's right. That's right.
All right. So let's talk about what's actually going on at BSides Chattanooga. So what kind of organizations have so far have like jumped in, said they're like going to be attending or participating?
Well, okay. Is that me? I see Ron nods his head.
I'm just, hey.
So we have some local placement agencies. The first thing is, Andrea, that BSides is about the individuals, right? So it's more a community effort. It's more small businesses. And the whole point of starting BSides was to get away from some of the commercialism and just allow people to have conversations among skilled technical people that they might not otherwise have an opportunity to have. Because you go to a big conference and there's just event after event after event, and at some point you get worn out and you just want to sit down, have a drink with somebody, hang out, grab a meal, and talk through security and technology. And so that was the genesis for BSides years ago. One of the things that we find here is we've got a lot of opportunities for people to sit down and have conversations. And with that, we also have things that we're trying to get involvement from, obviously, Hacker Arsenal, Pentester Academy. We've got some items from Hack 5, although, as you all notice, you've not provided any representation. I mean, nobody's going to be here from your area really to talk about your business. We're going to mention how you've supported the community. We're going to bring that up, and we're going to drive, hopefully, several of our members to look at the products and the services that are available. We also have, for those people who are trying to get into a role in security, or who maybe have several years in, but they're really ready to stretch their wings, maybe move to another place in security, we're going to have a placement agency who is helping us with the registration, and they'll be there to talk through with people. So we know sometimes people run into a place in their careers where they're kind of stuck, and maybe they get caught in the backwash, right? Maybe they lost a position here in the last couple of months and they're looking. We're going to have somebody there. So those are some of the organizations that we have who will be on site or have provided some material. No Starch Publishers has committed to us, and they've given us some books to hand out. So as you know, with information security, learning is a constant process. So whether it's books, whether it's Pentester Academy, and going out there and seeing some of Vivek's material that he's published, we want to make that available, and we've been blessed, and we're very thankful and appreciative to your all's organization and others who make this available. But one of the things when Ron and I started talking about this some time ago was we wanted to make sure that not only do we give back to the community, but people who attend are able to give back to the community. And we have an organization called the Rural Technology Fund, led by Chris Sanders. He's a former Mandiant employee. Chris stood up the Rural Technology Fund because he came from a very impoverished area in Kentucky, and found that technology was not only something that he was good at, he had an aptitude for, but he really liked it. And so he stood up the Rural Technology Fund because, along with all the stuff that he liked, he found that it was lucrative for him. It enabled him and empowered him to move out of the situation he was in, and he wants to do that for other school children who may not have some technology in their classrooms. So the BSides Chattanooga has this year asked Chris to come down. He's going to be helping us with some of the material we're giving away. And for that, we're going to have where attendees can give something to his 501c3 and give back to the community in that way. So we have the technology and information security community supporting our people, both in terms of their knowledge, their skills, their practices, and perhaps even a job. But we also have an opportunity for them to give back to the next generation of young people who might be a little more impoverished in terms of technology, not have it as handy. Those are some of the organizations that are committed to being partners with us this year, and we're very appreciative for that. But when it comes down to the people, we've got people from all kinds of roles. Security engineers, analysts, people who've worked in federal jobs, state jobs, people who are working in private industries, startups, 100-year-old insurance and finance companies. We've got it all across the board.
Cool. So what are some interesting activities or talks going on that you guys are most excited about, or that some of the participants can look forward to?
You know, one of the things when we went through, a call for papers and a call for presentations, we sent out a general request, and during that request, you never know what you're gonna get back, and with us being a new conference, we weren't too sure what we're going to see because we don't have a reputation or a history. But I was pretty surprised. I mean, we've got several talks on everything from things that are way out there, like on how to use machine learning and artificial intelligence to improve and work with security, all the way down to how do you make security work with no budget, which is good because a lot of these companies don't have like the company we work for, we have dozens of people in information security, each one with a different role and a job. But what do you do if you're a small company, a law firm, or a small whatever? You still need information security. How do you do it? How do you come in and do that on a next to nothing budget? And so we've got some talks that are kind of focused around that. And so it spans, everything about how to do cutting edge all the way down to how do you do security, I don't want to say on the cheap, but yeah, on the cheap. And so we're pretty happy with the range of talks. Plus we're going to spend some time having lightning talks in between the normal presentation. So if people come in and have a topic that they're really passionate about, they can have 10 minutes just to sit down and talk about that topic in front of a very active group. And we think that that's pretty good to start conversations and pretty good just to get people, kind of going on the whole, what can I do with information security? But also, you may not know these people are your next door neighbors. When we bring these guys in and gals in, you don't know that they may be working across the street, or they may be in Knoxville or somewhere which isn't that far away. But if they bring this knowledge in, we're hoping to set up that networking relationship to where we can, make the community better. And that's really, to me, that's more important than the actual talks themselves. It really is, how do we come together as a community where we can just keep on growing, not just as a big group, but as individuals and all. So that's really the bigger picture. But we were really happy with the variety of talks being scheduled, and just the excitement that people, our venue, to be honest, we could have doubled our venue size. And but we didn't know that. We didn't know that for the first year. And so we were very surprised when we got to the point to where we had to actually start turning people away. It was a happy, sad kind of thing. We were really happy that, oh my goodness, people bought tickets. And then the sad part was, actually having to say we didn't have the physical room for people,
Well, we had that same problem when we were looking at the talks too. And we'd put out the call for papers, call for presentations. And the volume that we got back and the quality of the ones we got back, there were some that we were able to say, hey, this needs some refinement. Please take this, refine it, and come back later on. But the volume, we could have run an entire third track of presentations easily. We had enough high quality that scored with the group that did the evaluation. And they were from different levels, different skill sets, different amounts of experience, the people who did the evaluation. So we didn't just have, people who've been in information security for the last 10 years or 15 years, and they're very senior. We had a pretty good swath of people, cross-section of people evaluating these, and they picked these out and weighted them for us. So we were surprised, Ron and I were, when we were looking at the volume of the response we got and the quality. And so we knew at that point we're going to have to cut it down because the venue just wouldn't support it. But even as he said, when we got to the point of attendees looking at, what are we presenting? And yes, they want to invest some money to get a ticket. The fact that we not only went further than, we talked with some of the other founders for BSides in their area, and they gave us a good idea of, hey, your first year, here's what to expect. But we went so far beyond that. We were shocked. We were very happy, and I think we're pleasantly going to have to look for a new venue or make some other arrangements with the venue we have next year. So we're really happy about that situation.
And one of the things that I've seen a lot of this year, was, whether you want to call it diversity or whatever you want to call it, one of the things that a lot of the information security conferences are concerned with are, are we getting the same old people coming in speaking? Are we getting a mix of, whether you want to look at it and say, are we having enough women speakers or minority speakers or whatever you want, whatever you're looking for. And that's one of the things that I actually got into a couple of discussions with about how do you how do you help that out? Because I know some conferences are not diverse at all, and they don't have the variety, and most of it's, vendor driven and so forth. And that's one of the things that I think that the industry as a whole has to figure out is how do we work with just, the whole situation, and how do we at least recognize it and try to improve upon it. So that's something that we weren't too sure how to actively do this year, but in talking, I think there's an awareness level out there at the conference level, and I'm hoping to see a little bit better and a little bit more when it comes to that. But I can't that's the problem is when you do a blind call for papers, you don't want to know, some of these things, because you're trying to make a blind decision. Mm-hmm. So I'm just hoping everyone who hears this and kind of sees out there, the opportunity is for you for you to go out to a BSides and speak. You just got to step up and do it.
And ours, not just any of them, certainly ours next year.
Yes,
we've got things, Andrea, that go from how do I set up a lab in my home so that I can practice, to industry standards like what happens when OWASP gets together and evaluate, when they all get onto a call and they're going to have a conversation among themselves. What does that look like? So things that some people might not have insight into. And then we've got, security engineering questions about how do I apply security engineering principles? What are some of the tools look like? What are some examples of things that people have seen? And those are all exciting. Unfortunately, I think Ron and I are going to be running around, and we're not going to have a whole lot of time to sit in on those or the lightning talks. But thankfully, we have somebody who will be recording all of these sessions. So you won't get the same, if somebody doesn't attend, they're not going to get the same kind of input and engagement where they could ask questions and kind of feed off of each other and maybe form the conversation, but they will have an opportunity after a period of time to review the content that's there. And so hopefully, along with, inviting a lot of people to come and make an offering next year, we'd love to run 4 or 5 tracks and see everything from, hey, I want to set these devices up, to, here's some stuff that I've seen, and here's how to tell what an indicator of compromise is, and here's how you write these firewall rules, here's how you fuzz an application. We want it all across the board. But it's exciting. I just think unless Ron is sneaking into one of the other rooms and he's watching, I'm expecting he and I are probably going to have to watch these after the fact.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's obviously a demand for it. It's so great that you guys were able to sell out in your first year.
We're excited.
Yeah, that's so exciting. So one thing I do want to bring up is the everyday carry hacker bag. I've been really excited about this. I've been following the blog post. So yeah, just for our viewers, can you tell us a little bit about this giveaway and what we can expect?
That's all, Mr. Parker.
Oh, well, one of the things that we've seen giveaways, at other conferences, but they've never been quite so, we wanted something that was more themed, that was more of a unit of stuff. So we got to thinking, well, what does that really mean? And if you think about what you carry in your pockets every day, some people carry a knife and a pen and their keys, and we got to thinking, well, what does a hacker need? And we use hacker with quotes, big quotes, hacker. What does a hacker need to carry every day? And so we just started going down a list, and we started thinking, well, there's all kind of electronic devices. There's, everything. I need a notepad to a who knows what, to a pineapple scanner kind of thing, and so we just went down a list, and we just pulled a bunch of stuff together and began adding it, to a bag. And I'm kind of surrounded by all that right now. I've got it all kind of sitting around me. But one of the things I think is interesting is, we go everything from an electrician's, even from a multi-tool that's made for an electrician, so you can cut wires, all the way down to, when you look at a Wi-Fi pineapple, to actually do some work. We've got portable keyboards. We've got all. Yeah.
And now these they don't get. These are mine. So, but we're hoping they've got some there in their bag.
Yes, that's exactly right. We've got a large list of just, soldering irons and just odd things to put in a bag. And we actually went out and got a really nice 511 tactical bag, that's all set up and ready to be expanded upon. It'll last it'll last longer than your grandkids or whatever.
You can hand it down.
You can hand it down throughout
your grandkids. That's it. Yeah.
And we even went so far as, if in case you're just sitting there and you need a titanium spork in case you go to Taco Bell or something and you need to, do whatever you need to do with that spork. But we do. We've got quite a few items that are put together, including, other items like rubber duckies from Hack 5. We have books. We have book certificates. We've got a lot of stuff. And what we want to do is we want to show people that, hey, there's a lot of neat stuff. If you've not been exposed to information security before, it's not just technical, mumbo jumbo. There's a lot of physical things that you can do with information security. There's a lot of technical toys that you can go play with. We have a Raspberry Pi Zero, and that means you could do there's just tons of stuff out there with a Raspberry Pi that you can do these days. And one of those will be in the bag. So we started that notion of the hacker everyday carry probably 6 months ago, and we added stuff to that bag, over that period, and we kind of blogged about it, and like I say, all that's still out there on the website. So we were pretty excited to be able to have the opportunity to give out something like that, and we've not seen a giveaway that quite added all that stuff together into a single bag giveaway, and so we're kind of leading the charge there with that. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, definitely. So what do you kind of wish to accomplish in your first year? And what do you hope that participants can kind of walk away with or take away from your event?
Say you or me?
It's both of us, but you go ahead.
Okay. So I think for the first year, if they show up at this point, see, first it was, can we get people to speak? Then we're going to be successful. Then it was, can we get people to actually buy tickets and say they'll come? And can we get sponsors who'll support all of the people from around the area who are going to come in here? And we've been successful in all those things. And part of this is based on the brand of BSides. Part of this is based on our area. And the fact that there's a desire for people to have this connection and to understand, does somebody else know something that I could use? So at this point, it's who all shows up and enjoys the time and enjoys the opportunity to connect, the fellowship, the knowledge, the engagement in the community. And then as people go away and they start talking about this, are they going to say, that was really worth my time, my $20? That was a value, which, by the way, it'll be a little more next year. Still getting the CPEs. You got a chance to win cool things. But we found out about that one this year, right? But if they go away and they say, hey, I really thought the value was worth my time and worth my money, right, that's really the biggest thing that we can hope for at this point. There's no other measurement. I mean, it's very much subjective. And I'm sure some people will come back. I mean, like we said at the beginning of this, Ron and I have both been to conferences, and there were some that just didn't scratch my itch. I went, and it didn't touch exactly what I was looking for. So I'm sure we're going to have a couple of people like that. But hopefully, overall, what we find is a growth in the community and a heartbeat in our area for people actually talking with one another and building that relationship.
Yep, and I that's exactly right. I'm really looking for two things. To kind of sum that up is, I want people to walk away thinking, I did learn something. Oh, I didn't know that. That's the thing I want. And the second piece that I think is to me is when they come up and say, "Are you doing this again next year?" That's what I want to hear. I want to hear people come up and say, "Are you doing this? When is next year's?" And I think those are the two things I'm looking for, because that
I
really.
don't want to hear that question yet, man. I'm going to make it through the weekend. I'm looking forward to that. But yes,
that's right.
Yeah, that
But
is
I
a
think
big thing.
That's what we want to hear. We want to, we want to take the passion that we have and hopefully, spread it around a little bit and see if it sticks. So
if it fertilizes anything and makes it grow,
that's right.
If it makes it grow in the community, and right. We know, Andrea, just from when we finally marked the website with the tickets are sold out, it generated quite a bit of activity, phone calls, text messages, tweets, DMs on Twitter, emails. A lot of people are like, "Oh, I meant to get in on that." And okay, we're sorry that we had a limit. We wish we didn't, but unfortunately, it's limited resources. But if we come out of this BSides and we have people saying, as Ron said, "Hey, I want to make sure I don't miss the next one. This one was good." We don't just want the people who did miss it. We know that they want to be there. There's a part to that participation. There's a part to that knowledge. But the people who were there, did they come away saying, "You know what? That was good. I want to be part of making next year better." Whether I'm volunteering, whether I'm trying to get my company to sponsor part of this, whether I'm speaking and presenting, we'd love to see people. Again, this is all grassroots and local. So we want to see that level of engagement in the community grow. And we don't want control of it. We're trying our best. Ron and I are trying our best to put forth for the people a venue, an engagement opportunity, and the logistics. Do we have the food? Do we have the goodies to give away? Do we give people a framework in which they can work? But the reality is, if they come away wanting this to be something they can contribute to, that's really the thing that we're looking for. So you contribute for 45 minutes by presenting, but you get the next 3 hours back, having people pour, or 4 hours back, having people pour into you. And if you win something, great. But realistically, it's about building that community and getting something and having an opportunity to give something.
Yep.
Okay. So I know, like, in my research, a lot of young professionals from San Francisco, New York, and Austin are all moving to Chattanooga because of all the tech boom and just the kind of lifestyle and environment.
Moon pies.
And moon pies. So for younger professionals, or kind of like you were saying earlier, professionals that are trying to find the next step in their career, what advice would you have for them getting into this industry?
The one thing that I definitely always ask and always want to see in someone getting into this is, what are you doing on your, if you're that excited about this, there is so much, on the internet. There are so many, whether it's a YouTube resource or a blog or whatever it is, or places like, Hacker Arsenal, Pentester Academy that you can go to and just look and see all this information, all these how-tos. I would say that they can, with a little bit of help, probably be pointed in the right direction to expose them to any aspect of information security, and whether that's in development or whether it's a pen tester type deal. To me, that's where I would point people, would be to some of those resources, because they could do that on the cheap, and just on their own time. And if they're really passionate about it, they can go as deep and as wide as they want to go. That's my first advice is resources are plentiful and almost free. But
and you'll get to them fast once you get to Chattanooga.
That's right. In Chattanooga, it's very, very fast. But that's the normal, my normal answer.
Yeah, and so I'd say, these are some, and Andrew, these are some that you all have that I picked up, and they're not terribly expensive, and it is an opportunity to grow your skill set. These are some of the devices. I don't know if you all still do the Winx mobile or not.
Yeah, we're no longer doing the YNX portable.
Yeah, so sorry everybody, this thing is fantastic. I love it. But if you go with us and you get one of the portable batteries, this is a USB powered device, right? So it's easily contained inside the Hacker Everyday Carry, and you just plug it up via USB. So there are hardware pieces out there, and you can take courses, you can get books. you can do this inexpensively. And that really is a place where we start to gauge the temperature of somebody who says, well, I'm a young professional, I want to get into this. I understand it's lucrative. Maybe it's the money that's the draw, but part of the excitement around information security is it's creative. There are creative individuals threatening us, and they're motivated by money. They've already made their decision. They're not going to work inside the bounds of normal society. So when we start looking at protecting businesses that are trying to bring value to the marketplace, that's exciting, knowing that we are in competition just mentally and in terms of our operations, in terms of our technical knowledge, our application of it, our processes, that we're trying to protect something that somebody else is trying to break into and compromise. When someone steps outside of their day-to-day 9-to-5 job and they say, I really want to move into information security, if they begin to invest time, if they begin to invest just a small amount of money, and they begin to show that level of excitement and passion that Ron mentioned, at that point, you can begin to guide that person. You can invest in them and help them by saying, what part do you like? Any job's going to have the pieces that are a grind, right? But there's always a piece that makes your eyes light up when somebody asks you about it. And if information security and working through, whether it's security engineering or architecture or development, secure coding, secure design, if it's GRC, whatever the piece is that gets you excited about it, if you come to me and you say, hey, I think I want to get into information security, and I ask you what you're doing today, and you say nothing, I got to tell you, I'm not sure this is the place for you, because it will grind you down. But if you come to me and you say, hey, look, I've been reading federal documents. I've been looking at ISO or NIST. Okay, well, GRC might be the place for you. If you come in and you say, hey, look, I picked up a really cool tool and I'm analyzing my network at home, and I went into my boss and they said that I could actually capture some packets as long as I don't share them and I can practice here. Well, hey, now I start to say maybe you're actually interested in doing some red teaming. Maybe you want to look into pen testing. If you want to do system administration and you say, I've grown as far in being a system administrator as I can go, I want to take another step. Maybe blue teams for you. Maybe that's a place where you want to be. There are a lot of places that we can guide people who show that passion, that interest. But if you don't have it, there's not much we can do to impart it to you. There's not much you can do to grow that.
And the thing about Chattanooga now is, because of all the excitement, the innovation, and everything else that we've kind of talked about, is there are a lot of groups now in Chattanooga, whether it's the Python developers group or the Linux group or the Red Hat group or whatever it is. They meet on a weekly basis. There is some meeting almost every night somewhere downtown, and even at the innovation centers, in these large meeting areas, where you can go sit with other developers and other technical people and other makers or whatever group you fall in.
Security researchers.
And those guys are meeting, every night of the week. So, I mean, we could connect you up with one of those groups, whether it's, Chattanooga developers or whoever, and you could then find that mentor that kind of matched what you were wanting to do. And we didn't have that, 5 years ago. We did not have, now if you go to Meetup or one of these other online services and you look at Chattanooga, 5 years ago, you didn't see hardly anything.
Well, you'd see a meeting, but there wouldn't be anybody there.
There wasn't anybody there.
Yeah, you couldn't find them. So I know that LinkedIn since January has started a mentor program. If you have somebody who wants to go out to LinkedIn and say, I'm willing to be a mentor, and the areas that person is marked as skilled, they show up. So if somebody comes into LinkedIn and says, I'm looking for a mentor in these areas. So I've got a couple of people here in Chattanooga who have reached out to me. One young man who said, I work at a particular business. I've been doing system administration. I'm very interested in information security. And we have tried to work out, at the very least, we've been able to pass messages back and forth, either through text or via LinkedIn. So while I don't really necessarily want to plug some business out there like LinkedIn, I will say they've made that much easier to connect. So if that's the place where you build the connection, great. If you build it at BSides, fantastic, but we only meet once a year. If you're really looking to make that connection, like Ron says, there are a lot of those that are meeting weekly, and you might even find, if you want to do development, there's Chattanooga for developers, there's the Python group, there's a Ruby group, and before you know it, if you don't have anything else, if you're a young professional, you don't have anything else, you might find yourself in a different meeting every week. And it may be some of the same people, maybe some new people, but it gives you a really good surrounding group to engage and look for that person who can mentor you in a particular area.
Yep.
All right. Cool. So, Kevin, I kind of want to jump back a little bit. So I know, you bought the YNX and you have the Y monitor and the portable. Ron was telling me you've been kind of playing around with it. I just kind of wanted to get your feedback. How have you liked playing around?
I've had quite a lot of fun. It's been a very interesting opportunity to get into some of this. These are not generally my day-to-day job. So I consult, but sometimes I find, Andrea, when I'm consulting, people, you can tell them something, and it's difficult for a person who's not versed in the various domains of security to really believe that it's that easy. It's always somebody else who gets attacked. It's always somebody else who gets compromised. And if you're not part of the pipeline to actually find out what your security team is doing at an enterprise our size, you may never really know what it is that's happening and how diligently people are working to protect things. So being able to use some of the devices that you all have, being able to use Lanternal or Bash Bunny or something from Hack5. So you take those different devices and you begin to apply the training that come with those and branch out. So move outside. It's great to get what Vivek's putting out in the Pentester Academy and say, okay, I'm gonna go right with that. Here's the script he gave me. Here's what I'm gonna work through. That's wonderful, very valuable. I love it. Being able to branch out and kind of change that with my home network and just seeing what's going on here at home. It's very informative, and it empowers me to have different conversations because not only do I know something theoretically, I actually can say, hey, look, I've done that. So I was teaching some kids at a local school about programming, and we addressed information security. I had taken, as a matter of fact, I took the little YNX, right? And I also took another device. Let me say a little device that I was able to perhaps inject packets with, and gave them a demonstration. I didn't tell them how to do it, but those kids love the fact that they could see a phone. I had a guy take his phone and he made it a hotspot, and his friend used his phone to connect to it. And I said, okay, are you all ready now? And they said, yeah. I said, watch what happens. And I mean, like that, knocked the kid off, watched him reconnect, and they were able to watch it on a big screen monitor up behind me. They loved it. It was so exciting to them because it was a real world example of what a hacker might do. Now, again, I obfuscated the commands. They weren't able to see that, but they did see the result. The kid's like, hey, I lost my connection. It was really neat to be able to use some of these devices for that. That was a fun thing. And I did see some of the guys' eyes, and some of the kids, guys and girls, their eyes light up in class. They're like, whoa, this is really cool. I might want to pursue that. So it gave them an idea once they get out of school, some place that they might want to go. I couldn't have had that conversation if I hadn't been trying these tools out, using them on myself, using them on my home network. So.
Well, Kevin probably didn't mention that, what happens to you when you're wandering around someone's backyard at night with an antenna, how much exercise you can get as you run down the street at night.
That does not happen anywhere I know, Ron. I don't know anybody who might do that. My neighbors are going to be worried about me. Now, I'm not doing that, folks. I'm not, I promise. So, it's a can antenna, right? We're walking around with a can antenna.
That's.
I've got my Pringles out. I make the kids eat the Pringles out of the can so that I can. That's wrong, isn't it? Look at my neighbor. What's going on? Look at that throughput. Wow, I need faster connection. I don't do things like that. Now people won't believe me. And Ron's just sitting over there. He's going to be laughing.
Hey, I just, I try to just tell the truth.
I appreciate
that. You do all the talking.
You are a paragon of honesty, and I appreciate that.
Yes, I am.
You are. That's why we're friends.
Okay, Okay, sorry. Really, I wanted to ask this a little bit ago, but have you tried using the YNX with an OTG cable?
I have not yet. I have not. No. Okay. I did. I tell you what I did. I may have hooked the YNX up to a Raspberry Pi and used that, and then VNC'd into the Raspberry Pi off of my phone. If I had done that, I would say that was a very handy experience. I appreciated that level of connectivity if I had done that. It's a powerful tool, and the connection through a Raspberry Pi with VNC over a mobile hotspot means you can move around a lot. And like I said,
and that I think the portability on that one, and when you start looking at some of the other devices that have been around a while, and you start looking at, how do I power those devices? How do I keep that going? And you start looking at these new devices, and you start pairing up things like a very low powered Raspberry Pi with these other very portable devices. You now have something that's backpackable, that you can carry with you. And used to, you don't want to go to the coffee shop and plug up 5 things, because everybody, that's just, you kind of lost your undercoverness at that point. So, the changes in the last couple of years in the technology and the size and the way things work and just having things like a Raspberry Pi to be the central, your command and control for all these other pieces is changing everything in the way it works. So it's impressive, actually.
And the scripts, not only the hardware that you all put out, Andrew, but the scripts that you make available for some of this, they're easy to use. I will say I ran into some issues in Windows, but once I got over to a VM, no problem. It all, a Linux VM with the Winx, the scripts that I had from you all, the Python scripts, very handy, very useful. But again, you go to the Raspberry Pi, and like Ron said, it's just portable. You plug things up, and this is an older, this is heavier, but literally I carry every day, talking about the hacker everyday carry, the very battery pack that we're talking about, I carry this in my back pocket literally constantly. And if I'm wearing a suit, I've got this in there. It's got a couple of outputs, and I can plug up multiple devices. I could plug up my phone. I could power a Raspberry Pi off this. I can power the YNX through that. And then you remote into it with a mobile hotspot. And a backpack is overkill at that point. Yep. You don't even have to have a backpack. Some small device package to carry things is effective.
You need a man purse.
Whatever that looks like.
I'm just saying. So
I still have not done the OTG to the phone. I'm interested in doing that. It's just I moved away into some of the coursework in Pentester Academy, so I'm still waiting to get back into that.
All right, cool. Well, when you try it, let me know. I'd love to hear your feedback.
Absolutely. I've had nothing but great results with your hardware, with your training. It's been very impressive.
Well, we love hearing that. That's definitely our goal. We want to just get all the information that we can out to as many people as possible and really empower people through knowledge.
It's well, and my daughter, as well as some of the younger people that I mentor when they're talking about getting into technology, coding is great. They're interested in coding. Ron and I both, as he mentioned when we first started, one of the ways we got connected to even begin collaborating on things was we were both developers working in development at a Fortune 500 company, and they're interested in coding. So I show them coding. We talk about coding. We walk through what the language looks like, what the design looks like. But you want to talk about something that'll just, capture their attention in a second. I can be watching one of Vivek's videos where he's typing and you see stuff scrolling and all of a sudden something happens. Or I can be watching something else on YouTube. And I mean, their eyes just light up. They're like, whoa, what's that? What can you do with that? How does that work? And having the tools at hand, my daughter sat down for a half hour the other night and she watched and was just constantly interrupted. Wait, Dad, does that mean so-and-so? And I'm like, well, yeah, you can do that, and here's how. And we have the tools at hand to actually set it up. And again, as I've mentioned, because we're doing this on a home network, I've got multiple Wi-Fi hotspots, multiple wired connections. So it's something that I can just immediately, we walk in the office and fire up an instance, a VM instance, or hook up a Raspberry Pi, plug in one device, and boom, off you go. She can actually see the results of what can happen. And it becomes practical knowledge at that point. She begins assimilating and learning organically. So it's very valuable. And when some of the guys come over and they want to know about pieces like that, it's just great to have that experience that you all put out there and be able to transition that to other people who are interested. It could mean a career, and then again, it could just be a hobby of theirs.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, I think that kind of wraps it up for questions I have for you. Are there any ongoing projects that you guys are working on, or any things that you might want to mention and share? Outside of BSides, but like, any announcements you want, or something?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is just to get, we're really, making it through next week and getting past this BSides and really going from there. I mean, I think this may, we may expand out and do a little bit more in the community even because of this, because it's kind of an eye opener how excited people get about, these types of opportunities. So we may be looking for other ways to reach out to the community to do the whole, not just education, but just like we said before, even a mentoring, type aspect. So that's the number one thing right now for me is making sure that this works well. I think that's it.
Well, and then we can action when we get those people who are interested. So then we can action that in a useful way for them. I think is going to be valuable. But I don't know, honestly, Ron. I don't even know what to expect after we get finished next Saturday. Where do we go from there? I assume you and I both are going to take a week off and and not think about anything other than work.
That's right.
And then get back to it. But I'm hoping that we in the interview or in the questionnaires that people are going to be filling out, hopefully we'll get some creative ideas about what people would like to see and what they might find value in, and maybe be able to turn that around for next year, whether it's a CTF the day before or hands-on training. I think that'll be something that we'd like to see, but in terms of current engagements, I don't think there's anything I can really talk about right now.
Yep.
All right. Cool. Well, Kevin and Ron, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me and let us know more about your event.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sponsoring it.
Yep. We really appreciate it. It's been interesting last 5 or 6 months, and we're just hoping it ends even. I think Andrea did.
Hi, sorry.
Oh, there you are now. See? I was trying to figure out. I was like, I think I froze, but no.
That's right.
Well, I'm thinking it had to be on my end because I'm the only one without
That's without the high-speed connection. That's it. You need fiber
that's
right
right.
there. That's what you need. Right. Fiber. Yeah.
We're looking into it.
That'll work. That'll work.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. So my sound kind of slowed down. Ron, would you mind just repeating that little last bit?
What was the last bit?
It was any projects, any work that you have.
Oh, is that the part that you want? The any projects part?
Oh yeah, or like anything you want to talk about. I know you were saying something about, I think it was 6 months.
Oh, okay. Sure. You know, one of the things, one of the things that we are looking forward to is we hope that as this ends out, it actually turns out to be better than the last 6 months. But even though, see, I said that again, and now you're prompting me, and I can't talk.
I'm sorry.
You were talking about how good it was the last 6 months and how it's continually ramped up.
Yeah,
And
I
each
know
day
I
gets
did,
better.
but then in my mind, it just all froze. It froze again. You know, I'll try one more time.
You're buffering. That's what it
I'm
is.
buffering.
You're buffering.
That's right. Yeah, the last 6 months in planning this, I mean, it's really been a learning experience, and I'm really hoping that we can take what we've learned in the last 6 months and expand on that and actually grow it out into, you know, better opportunities for people, easier opportunities, and more opportunities in time, because B-side is only once a year. So we've really got to figure out how do we reach out, you know, to the community on a much more regular basis. But I really am looking forward to, you know, this ending with a bang, and kind of going from there and see what happens next.
Yeah, definitely. So I know when we had talked on the phone a little while ago, you guys were saying how the first year, you know, a lot of people are giving you advice on how to plan things and what worked best for them. But then really like the next year is when you get to kind of like do the planning. Yes. So what are some kind of big things that you've learned that you want to bring into next year's event?
Bigger venue. One of the things that we're, you know, because we had no estimation, you know, larger venue. Budgeting now is, because at first you don't really, you've got an idea, but it's just a budget. But actually now we have actual numbers and all the little things that we need that we didn't think about, you know. So next year when it comes to planning, you know, this year it was kind of every time we did something, it's like, oh, I didn't think about that, you know. So we're over here writing, you know, and Kevin and I have to pick up cans on the side of the road, you know, during the week to make money. So it's really rough. But you know, next time around, I think that just having a more accurate budget and knowing the needs will help us provide we'll be able to provide the more better correct things, you know. But because this year we're doing, you know, kind of by the seat of our pants. And I think with a bigger venue, knowing what the budget and how sponsorships work and how, you know, what you really have to have, just having that real experience will help us plan better for next year. That's the biggest for me. Getting rid of that unknown. I mean, that's, you know, it'd be a lot smoother.
Yeah, I think we had questions about what we could depend on in terms of the community, in terms of people speaking, and so there were things that we committed to at a certain point, just to get everything started. Being able to say where we think we are, perhaps more accurately, and Andrea, honestly, our second year is still going to be a little bit, you know, we're going to be understanding if the first year was an outlier for the next 3 or 4 years, or if we're growing, if we continue to grow in terms of the involvement, the engagement, if there's value to the vendors who are supporting us like you all are, if there's value to the community, you know, what is that value and how do we maximize it? But one of the things, you know, when Ron says we'll be able to offer more better, part of that better is my sanity and his sanity, because when we're looking at the budget, it's not like we just said, okay, we're not going to do a lot. I mean, we've got several things, and it's certainly going to be, I think, valuable to people in multiple aspects. What they could get, what's available to them, the fact that they're not going to starve, they're going to get continuing professional education units. There's a lot that we have. But there have been times when he and I had to make some hard decisions. And that was stressful in the midst of having full-time jobs. And, you know, we have had some people who offered to help, and then trying to get everybody involved at the right level, at the right time. We weren't really able at this point to bring together what we've brought together and logistically manage the people who offered to help. Hopefully next year we'll have the ability not only to bring the pieces together we're trying to, but also provide a really good framework where other people can be successful in engaging and delivering more than just presentation material. So I think there are a couple of places where it would be advantageous to us, and I think it'll bear out over the next 2 or 3 years how much we can transition that to value for the attendees and value for the sponsors.
And that's a good point, Kevin, because I mean, it comes back, even if you have volunteers, but if you can't tell them exactly what they need to do, it's really hard.
Sometimes it's just people wandering around in a room, right? If you can't give them some direction, you're like, I don't know, stand over here for a second. We'll get back to you.
So now looking backwards, if people volunteer for next time around, we'll have a lot better idea to say, okay, I know exactly what you need to do, and it'd be much easier to utilize all those resources, because we did have people volunteer, but we just couldn't, we didn't have the experience to be able to point them in the right direction.
And knowing what the baseline is for us, that's one of the valuable things, Andrew, where we can say, okay, I can tell a group of people to do this much work. I give them this much work, and they can accomplish something, and it should only take a certain amount of their time and focus to do that. And then if they expand beyond that, are Ron and I able to leverage that and utilize that, or does that make the whole experience seem kind of kludgy? Right, so maybe they make these great banners and they really advance whatever piece of it is theirs, but the other pieces don't keep up with it. And how do we make an experience that's good for everybody, no matter how they engage us? If you engage the physical security village, if you come in and you're working on locks and you're working on physical security, what does that feel like versus the person who's presenting? Do the presenters feel like we've offered them a similar kind of experience to other places they've presented? Do they feel like we really dropped the ball in some place? We want to be able to give people the freedom if they're going to volunteer. So we give them the basic, this is what we need you to do. And then if they feel a sense of ownership and they organically take that and grow it, we want to not have that stand out like a sore thumb. We want to be able to bring the entirety of what we're offering up to that
partially, level. And partially what Kevin is saying is we're control freaks.
I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to say we want to deliver a level to people, a level of experience that they can depend on. So
it's consistency.
It is. It's a brand, and it's BSides brand, but it's here in Chattanooga, so it's what we're delivering.
Yeah, definitely. Just for our viewers. So BSides Chattanooga is on March 24th. So that is next weekend. Kevin and Ron, I wanted to say, again, thank you so much for taking this time to interview with me. And again, congratulations on your first year selling out. And I'm excited to hear about how the event goes and see some pictures afterwards.
Oh, we'll have them during the event. There will be several, I'm sure. So.
Yes. And definitely take pictures of that everyday hacker carry bag.
Oh, we will.
Yes.
We will.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity to speak with you too. It's been it's been pretty exciting the last couple of months, and we hope we can do it again next year.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. We appreciate your all sponsorship. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, great. So have a great day, guys.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
All right, bye-bye.